Thank you for being here. As an athletic trainer, I just want to recognize everybody for being here and understanding that the critical role that each of you play in taking care of your athletes from a day-to-day basis as well as return from injury on long-term basis. You were introduced to Geoff Kaplan here from the Houston Texans, so thanks for being here, Geoff.
My pleasure.
And congratulations on a great year.
Thank you.
Realizing that you had one key component kind of missing this year that could have helped a little bit more maybe, but J.J. Watt. So J.J. is going to be with us here at the chat, sort of, via screen. So he's a busy guy, but we got him to sit down and answer some questions for us in advance. So as you'll see, we're going to cover different principles of the team that it takes to take care of an athlete. So sports medicine and sports performance. And we're going to have JJ answer some questions as well as Geoff to give us a peek as to how the Houston Texans have work and what their interaction is with their athletes. So, Geoff, would you mind giving us a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. I grew up in New Jersey, went to University of Wisconsin-Madison, undergrad, did majored in physical therapy. I'm really old, so I did the athletic training through the internship route before there was requirements of athletic training for a major. I started off as a young athletic trainer as an intern with the Green Bay Packers, and after that I was a young intern with the Houston Oilers. And after the Houston Oilers hired me. I worked in Houston for a few years, moved to Tennessee, became the Tennessee Oilers, became the Tennessee Titans, worked in Tennessee until 2009, and then they had the opportunity to become the head athletic trainer with the Houston Texans in 2009. So I kind of grew up in the NFL from a young pup to now.
So you've got a little bit of experience and with various athletes from across various teams and different settings. So. Shall we go ahead and start? First question that we're going to get right to it. So how do sports medicine and sports performance teams work together to ensure the success of athletes?
Very fortunate to have a great team of people helping me, create workout programs, create nutrition plans, make sure that we have the best of the best available to us. And we're always talking, making sure that we're eating at the right times, getting the right sleep, doing the right workouts. So I'm not smart enough to figure all that out on my own. I'm just very fortunate to have people around me telling me what to do. Athletic trainers and strength coaches collaborate all the time because, especially for a guy coming back from an injury, they need to know what can he do, what can't he do, what is he allowed to do. He's telling me he can squat 700 pounds. Your athletic trainer is telling me something different. Who's right? Those types of things.
So, Geoff, you want to take a stab at that same question? Sounds like he's got a pretty good amount of trust in you.
Yeah, so JJ and I have been together since the day he got drafted, and I think the biggest thing is with all of our athletes, not just JJ, but with all of our athletes, is you have to work very hard for them to trust you. We all work a lot of hours, and we are there when they get there in the morning. We are there when they leave in the evening, and we spend a lot of time together developing trust. And one of the keys to developing trust is I am brutally honest with these guys all the time. If they don't want to hear it, too bad. But I try to be honest with them and try to guide them with all the right decisions they have to make. But we have a team of people that do that. We have a bunch of athletic trainers on staff. We are privileged at the Texans. We have 5 full-time athletic trainers. 3 of us are also dual certified as physical therapists, and 3 of us are also certified strength and conditioning coaches. We have 3-year-long certified athletic trainers that are interns. So there's 8 certified athletic trainers on staff year-round. We have a large strength and conditioning staff. We have 3 strength coaches. We have a sports performance staff. So there's a whole bunch of people involved in all of our players' care, and we work as a team together. And the biggest thing is that you have to individualize what we do for these guys. Individualize it by position, individualize it by how long they've been in the league, and individualize it based on their medical history and what they've gone through. So that's how we handle it.
And you talk about so many people involved in the care of the athlete. How do you manage to all work together to make that work? Because that's a lot of manpower. That's a lot of brains working together for that one individual.
So communication's the key. And as a sports medicine staff, we meet every morning. We sit at a round table. We go through every player that's on the injury report. We meet every morning as a staff. And then I go meet every morning with the strength coach. And we talk about guys that were injured the day before, guys that are getting back from injury, return to play programs, where guys are on the rehab spectrum, where guys are on the return to play spectrum. And you have to be very well organized, and you have to work very hard at communication and put effort into it.
Thank you. And I think we all know communication goes a long way in any setting that we're in. So great to hear that you guys have a great communication plan within your staff.
Yeah, and it's a work in progress. Communication's a work in progress every day.
Flexibility, right?
Yeah, and here's one of the things, like I said, I've been in the NFL a long time, is I like to communicate in person. I like to talk to people. I like to see people face to face. I don't like emailing out injury reports. I don't like emailing out and text messaging injury reports or updates and stuff. I think it's important to develop relationships in this business, and you cannot develop a relationship via text messages and emails and things like that. So I walk around the building, I deliver the injury report, I talk to our head coach, I talk to our general manager, I talk to our head strength coach, I talk to all of our athletic trainers. We have a meeting every day. I think FaceTime is very important because you open up conversation, you open up dialogue, and people gain trust in you, and you learn a lot.
And that's, again, a great key point. So everybody, all the young individuals in the audience that like to rely on texting or email and so forth, very easy to get miscommunication going if you're not talking to somebody face to face. So let's go on to the next question, which is establishing the trust between, you talked a little bit about it already, but let's see what JJ talks about. Establishing trust between athletes and athletic trainers is critical. How does that happen?
My athletic trainer helped me get back from injury. It's every single day. They're there when nobody else sees the rehab, the grind, the work, the tough times, the adversity. And I think that's when you really develop a special relationship.
You want to expand on the relationship between you and JJ and the rest of your staff?
So there's a physical side of rehab. There's an emotional side. There's a mental side. And as athletic trainers, I think we are caretakers of all that stuff. And it's important for us to understand the emotional side, the mental side of it, as well as the physical side. The physical side of it, I mean, that's the easy part. That's tangible. We see the swelling, we see the lack of range of motion, we see the atrophy, whatever. But the emotional side and the mental side of it is often more challenging. We are not all well educated in that area, and it's a little harder. So everybody knows whether you're a high school athlete and you tear up your knee and you're a senior and you might never play football or soccer or gymnastics again because you're not going to play past high school, or if you're a pro athlete and you're going through a major injury in your career, your livelihood is on the line. There's a whole lot of emotional things that go into it. And I think the biggest thing is sometimes we lose the ability to listen. We all have to listen to our athletes. Don't put words in their mouth. Listen to them. Listen to what they have to say. Listen to what they're telling you. And a lot of times, you can figure out there's more than going on than what the physical side is. And we went through a lot together. We went through a lot after the 2016 season when he got hurt and dealt with an injury all season, and then had surgery in the off season. And then we dealt with a lot this year during 2017 where he had a couple different back surgeries. We've been through a lot together. And the biggest thing is he respects me, I respect him. We're not always going to agree. But he knows deep down inside I'm trying to look out for his well-being and what's best for him.
And that's a great point, is at the end of the day, you're not going to walk away necessarily being friends all the time because you have a goal in mind for him. He may not understand it, but the fact that you've built that trust, he's going to come back and continue to do what it is that you're asking him to do. And eventually he's going to get over being upset with you because he knows you've got his best interest.
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
All right, let's go on. Next question. We can only imagine what the schedule of an NFL team must be like. What does a typical day look like, and where does the time with the athletic trainer fit in? Let's hear from JJ.
I mean, a typical day for me is you wake up, make sure you get a proper breakfast in your system, go to work, hit meetings. I'll get some treatment before and after meetings, and then go out to the practice field, make sure I refuel with food and drink after practice, and then more meetings, and try and get a nap in there somewhere. Make sure I eat enough again at the end of the day, and then in bed by 9 o'clock, just to make sure I get the proper sleep, and then wake up and do it all again.
So Geoff, that's JJ, who just has to focus on himself, right? You have to focus on the entire team and your staff. What does a typical day look like for you?
So I think JJ kind of oversimplified it a little bit, maybe. So the training room opens at 6 a.m. during the season, and JJ's rolling in at 5:45, 6 o'clock, 6:05. I mean, the best players in the NFL are regimented and consistent and have a routine. And that's his routine. So he gets in the morning, he has a good breakfast, he comes in, we get an hour and a half, or 2 hours worth of treatment, rehab, whatever, prehab, whatever you guys want to call it, to keep him going. And then they usually go to meetings around 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're in meetings for 2 or 3 hours. And then there's a break of an hour in between meetings and practice where we work on the players again. And then we go out to practice, and then after practice, there is usually about an hour, hour and a half for them to lift weights, do more rehab, get more treatment. They go back into meetings around 4 o'clock. They get out of meetings around 5 o'clock. Then they're back in the training room at the end of the day trying to get right for the next day and work things out. So we do have a large staff. Like I said, we have eight people, but we're dealing with 90 players during this time of year. We have 90 players on our roster from the draft to the end of training camp. And then after training camp, we have 53 players on the active roster, 10 players on the practice squad, so that's 63. And then whatever number of players you have on injured reserve. Last year, we ended the season with 15 players on injured reserve. So now you're near 75 players that you're dealing with on a daily basis. So it makes it very challenging, but we are a very hands-on staff. We're a very aggressive staff. We like a lot of manual therapy. We like to interact with our players one-on-one as much as possible, and we try to get that out to all the players.
And I think that sounds like a pretty busy schedule, right? And that's for a lot of weeks in a row, a lot of months in a row, and yet you still have time to go home and be a father, be a husband, and have a personal life as much as you can during that time. But even the notion of it's a routine, it's a very regimented routine, that you're still taking the time, and you and your staff, and I think this is kudos to you, to do a lot of the manual stuff. It's not just hooking somebody up to a stim machine and letting them sit there and you walk away and go do something else. That you're spending a lot of time, and that's going back to that, building that trust, that the athletes know that you've got their best interest at heart.
Yeah, don't tell any of these vendors out here, don't tell any of them this, but your most important tool are these two things right here. That's your most important tool. Get your hands on your players, work on your players. It's amazing when you touch them how much they'll trust you and how fast they'll get better when you touch them.
Great. So we talked about JJ having an injury. So going on to the next question is, how do nutrition and hydration play a role in injury recovery? So let's see what JJ had to say.
Nutrition's played a massive role in my recovery, not only in my recovery, but the rebuilding, and then just every part of being an athlete. Nutrition is just as important as the workouts, just as important as the sleep, so definitely can't be overlooked. I've learned a lot about hydration, especially living in Houston and having to play in the 110-degree heat. I've learned how extremely important it is, and how you sure as hell know when you didn't hydrate properly.
I think it's, before I kick it off to you, just having had a little bit of interaction with JJ in the past, is that not only is he a freak of nature talent-wise, but that doesn't just come without any work. He puts a tremendous amount of work in there, and he is so regimented and committed to whatever it is that you guys are telling him, and in the hydration and nutrition as well. So if you can expand a little bit on what he stated there.
So obviously these guys are the best athletes in the world, and Maggie and I were having a conversation the other day, and it's not much different than NASCAR, right? Those are the fastest stock cars in the world, and it's a very competitive industry, NASCAR, where a couple hundredths of a second is the difference between coming in first place and coming in fifth place. And there's a lot of money involved with that. Well, a couple hundredths of a second, or a couple inches, or whatever it is to define how close he can get to a quarterback for a sack, or knocking down a pass, or tackling a running back for a loss. It's all measured in very small increments. So NASCAR cars, you don't drive up to the gas station and put regular gas in them, right? They have highly specialized fuel. They have highly specialized tires. They have highly specialized internal components. And they have highly specialized staffs working with them all the time, dedicated to this one car or the 2 or 3 cars on their team. Well, we're the same way in pro football. These guys are the best of the best, and what they put in their bodies is so important. And putting in the proper amount of protein, putting in the proper amount of carbs, putting in the proper and the right amount of fats are all very important to their recovery. And we all know that proteins are the building blocks of muscle. And it's very important that they take in as much protein as needed. We all know that carbohydrates are important. Carbohydrates fuel your brain, fuel muscle glycogen. You can't perform without carbs. So it's very important, and JJ's very dialed in to what he puts in his body, how important nutrition is, how many grams of everything he's putting in, and all that stuff. And it makes a huge difference. When he was coming back from his back injuries and all of his surgeries, he lost a lot of weight, a lot of muscle weight, and it was very important for him to fuel his body the right way so that he could recover and make this next season, 2017, the best season possible for him. And nutrition was the key.
And when we think about nutrition and injury, I think a lot of practitioners think that it's simply just cutting back on calories because they have less activity, restricted activity. But can you talk a little bit about how you and your staff address nutrition for an injury specifically to help with that muscle recovery, to help with neurological improvements and so forth, how that focus is versus just cutting calories back?
So after injuries, a lot of times there's a recovery phase, and there's a lot of atrophy and weight loss and things like that. And with that, there's a small component of depression that comes along with that, and that can affect your diet and the proper nutrition. So we constantly educating our players about nutrition and about protein and about the proper amounts of everything, because it all aids in healing. It's all the building blocks of what the most important part of healing is.
Great. And JJ, whatever he's told, again, he is so regimented. It's unbelievable. I mean, I think you're downplaying it as well, that he is so dialed in to what he does in every aspect of his training, recovery, sleep. I mean, don't bother the guy after his bedtime, right?
Right.
Sleep is as important as everything else that is coming into play here. We've got a little bit of time for some questions. Anybody in the audience? You've got experts here.
Sure, go ahead. Sure. So every NFL team has internship programs. And we have a summer internship program, just like every NFL team has summer internship program. And we also have what we call year-long internships, which are people who have graduated college, and most of them in our program have graduated grad school and are already certified athletic trainers and are looking to do an expanded internship for a couple of years and really be an athletic trainer. But every NFL team has very similarly structured programs where summer internships for people that are in college, and then year-long or seasonal internships for people who are out of college.
Anybody else? I want to point out something, Geoff, that you've got an audience here of individuals that are here to get educated, obviously, at this conference, but that they're here to listen to you as the expert. At the same time, these Geoff and the other individuals that sat here in the previous chat, even though they're the experts, they never consider themselves the experts. They're always searching for how to get better, or what else can they be doing for their athletes, and never rest on the fact that they're at the NFL, so they should know everything. You're constantly looking for ways to improve in everything that you do. And would you mind sharing a little bit of that without giving away too many secrets?
No, I mean, there's no secrets. Medicine's constantly changing and evolving, and I press upon my staff, and I'm a driver of it, in continuing education. We all take continuing education courses every year, and on our staff. And I think it's super important. We all subscribe to different journals and read journals, and sometimes that's really hard to find time to sit down and read articles and journals all the time and stuff like that. But continuing education is the heart and soul of medicine. Medicine's constantly changing and evolving, and if you don't take continuing education courses and you don't seek out new things, then in 5 years, this whole industry is going to pass you by. And it's essential that if you want to stay on top of things and you want to stay abreast of everything and you want to stay cutting edge, that you need to stay on top of continuing education and constantly be exploring things and evolving as a medical professional.
Thank you. So from any other questions? Yes.
In the past, like manual therapy course, and what's your recommendation will be good for either football or just something?
So great.
Good.
So manual therapy. When I hire athletic trainers, one of the things I ask them in the interview is what type of manual therapy do you like? What's your manual therapy background? So there's a whole host of manual therapy stuff, and I don't necessarily think one avenue is better than the other. You got to find one that is comfortable for you. At our place, we do a lot of mulligan stuff. We do a lot of joint mobilizations. We do a lot of our version of active release therapy. We use a lot of the handheld tools, whether it's Graston tools or the Hawk Grip stuff. We use that stuff. We do a ton, because we're in the state of Texas, we're allowed to. We do a ton of dry needling. We like that a lot. And we do a lot of flexibility work with them. And anything that you can do that you can get comfortable and confident in and do it on your players is I think it's going to work. The important thing is utilizing it at the right time. Anything else? Yes.
What's the hardest aspect of being an athletic trainer in the NFL? Like, what do you think is your biggest challenge being an athletic trainer in the NFL?
So the number one is the schedule and the grind. It's 6 or 7 months, 7 days a week without a day off, and working. During training camp, we average 110 hours a week. During the season, 80 to 90 hours a week. It's the grind is really hard. So that's number one. And number two is dealing with a lot of different entities. You're dealing with head coaches, you're dealing with general managers, you're dealing with owners, you're dealing with players, you're dealing with players' agents, you're dealing with players' families. There's a lot of different components at times involved, and the important thing is to make the decision that is best for the player. Okay? If you make the decision that's best for the player, then it's going to be best for the team. And that's the most important thing in the whole process. And it's easy to get distracted at times by a lot of outside stuff going on, whether it's the media or whether it's outside people talking to whoever, or we have all run into this outside gurus, who don't necessarily have all the information making decisions. But if you make the decision that is right for the player, it won't always be the easy decision, but if you make the decision that's right for the player, it'll 99% of the time be the right decision for the team.
And that actually brings up a point, maybe the last question here, but you talked about all these outside influences, and whether it's media, it's the guy on their shoulder talking, chirping in their ear, but what they should eat, what they should drink, what they shouldn't eat, that they're going to get fat if they consume this, that, obviously there's a lot of talk about carbs and how athletes don't need to do that. How do you, specifically in your staff, address that kind of chirping in your athletes' ears when an athlete walks in and says, no, I don't want any carbs?
So I think it's important for you guys to be educated. I mean, we have to know what we're talking about, and we have to be able to relay that message in a way that the players will understand it. So educating yourselves, being able to relay it in a way that players understand it. And I think we, as athletic trainers, we have an added advantage. We're around the players a lot. So we have the opportunity to try to educate them and show them the proper path of nutrition and why for instance, carbs are so important. There's so much information out there that is accessible to us to help provide to them why these things are so important. And I mean, you guys do a great job of it. GSSI, I mean, has an unbelievable wealth of information that you can show to your players, to your coaches, to your parents, whoever you're dealing with, of why these things are so important. And if you don't do them, what the possible issues are: injury, prolonged recovery, lots of things, you know. And the whole idea is we are stewards. I call ourselves stewards of our players' health. And education is a big key to that.
That's great. That speaks volumes about the trust that you have with your athletes.
But it's a daily dialogue that we have. It's not necessarily a battle, but it's a daily deal. Every day you're trying to educate them, talk to them.
Anybody else have a question?
Just one question. A lot of people here are secondary school athletic trainers. They see their kids maybe 2 hours a day. So what is one piece of advice you'd give them, biggest thing that they can do with their athletes to help them prevent injury?
So the thing that comes to mind right away is hydration. Hydration is the key. And if in our setting, and I think it's probably very similar in the secondary school setting, 50 to 75% of our guys show up 6 a.m. dehydrated because they're not hydrating enough. So hydration, number one, proper hydration, okay? It drives me nuts to see these guys carrying around this big 1 gallon jug of water. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? So we're going to drink all this water and then deplete our system of all the important electrolytes that we need to function and our muscles to function properly? It makes no sense to me. So hydration, the right hydration, education, that's what I would hone in on.
That seems pretty doable, right? It's not expensive. It's available anywhere, and anybody can do it at home too. So.
Yep.
Anybody else? So first, Geoff, thank you. On behalf of myself and Gatorade, I appreciate you being here today. Appreciate everything that you do for your athletes, because again, your staff is one of the hardest working staffs in the NFL, and what you guys do is phenomenal. And I think it shows with the relationship that you have with JJ, but your entire roster. And I think JJ might have one last bit of info here.
Athletic trainers have obviously been a big part of my career at every level, but I think no point more so than the last couple of years. Obviously, going through 3 surgeries, having such great trainers be able to get me through it is really something I can never say thank you enough for. I want to say thank you very much to all of my athletic trainers, Geoff Kaplan, Roland Ramirez, the whole Houston Texans training staff, for everything that they've done on and off the field to make sure that I'm the best athlete, best player that I can be.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here.